because Wonder Woman, the thing that she has, her most powerful weapon is the truth. She carries a lasso of truth, and it compels people to be honest. And so when I look at those, just deeply resonated me. I think, desperate to be my true self, and couldn't really express that. And so, yeah, I felt like I had to go my home. My parents were like, oh, Matthew's going to play Wonder Woman. He's going to sing Whitney Houston or Reba McEntire. Like, it's fine.
Yeah.
That's him. And my family, even my extended family, was like, that's just Matthew. But when I went out to the world, that's where I had to act like a, quote, boy. And so it's like I had to go out into the men's world and put the glasses on, put my hair up, but I just wanted to spin around and be myself.
Hey everybody, it's Kenya, and this is the Thank You for Saying No podcast, where we find meaning in life's unexpected turns, where we talk about how rejection can actually be a blessing, and where we learn to be grateful for life's no moments. Before we start, can I ask for a favor? If you like the show, the best way you can support Thank You for Saying No is to subscribe or follow wherever you are currently listening to the podcast. YouTube, Spotify, Apple, wherever, hit that subscribe button or hit that follow button. This is a free way you can support the podcast. And my commitment to you is that we'll find guests that you want, I'll listen to your feedback, and I will make sure the podcast gets better and better. And with that, let's get started. Matt Marr, welcome to the Thank You for Saying No podcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
I'm so excited that you're here.
It's so joyful, this little studio. It's all bright colors, and it's like a little gay rainbow, but it's not really a full rainbow, but I'll enjoy it.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that. And we have these lemons to kind of, preface our conversation today about turning lemons into lemonade. So it should be fun.
It should be. You have your Thank You for Saying No mugs. I don't give people... Well, we can't cuss, but I don't give people shit when they're on my show. I need to do better.
You're going to keep that after this. So you guys, we actually did a rejection reflection with Matt. This was back in Denver, where I think I met you in Las Vegas at the podcast conference.
Was it Vegas? It feels weird now because we were just talking about our friend Damona. We realized we know a lot of same, so it just feels like we've been friends for a while. But I guess it was Vegas. Oh yeah, because it was. Being at that crappy hotel for like a week. That was rough. The conference was good, but that was not good. No,
there was no Wi-Fi.
No, it was terrible.
Like,
it was too long to be in Vegas. It was not fun, but the people were great.
I'm so glad you thought that about the hotel.
It was a dump.
It was not great. Okay, but so we did a rejection reflection in Denver, and I was like, we have to get you on for a long form episode.
Yeah.
So here we are today, and for those who don't know Matt, he is an actor and a therapist and the host of an incredible podcast called Reality Gaze. And I would also like to acknowledge that you're an opera singer, or you sing opera, right?
I used to.
Okay.
I studied it back in the day.
I love it.
20 years ago.
I love how your combination of accomplishments, from like opera singer to therapist to podcast host, is just really fun.
You say fun. I say I grew up with ADD, so now I feel like it's better. I just have gay ADD. So it just kind of, but no, I definitely, my curiosity gets piqued sometimes too easy.
No, I'm the same way. So today we're going to talk about some of your unexpected twists and turns.
Sure.
Which it sounds like you had a few. And of course, the no moments and the lessons that you learned along the way.
Don't make me cry, girl.
No promises. No, I'm just kidding. But I would be crying too if you started crying. So
I think I'm good.
Okay. So I want to start with like your superpower, like what you consider your superpower. Because as I've known you and through conversations we've had and just like research I did on just your story and stuff like that, it feels like your superpower has kind of been your compass as you've navigated different twists and turns and kind of followed the path that felt right for you. So what do you think is your superpower?
Empathy. And I know this because my own therapist has told me. He's like, honey, this is your superpower, and it's also your weakness. Because I work a lot. Like within the last couple of years, I'm sorry, my people in my own pockets are sick of hearing it, but I just kind of realization of being codependent and people pleasing. So, but in a good way, it's helped me unlock a lot of that, and hopefully just use my superpower for good, not to hurt but yeah, empathy is been And I don't mean that as like, I think empathy is a buzzword now, which is great. But it's something I knew that I knew what empathy was, and that I had it from like middle school, high school. It just was kind of just, I think it's the way I'm programmed.
Yeah. Can you give us an example of like, how did you know you had empathy that young?
I remember when, in middle school, like, I wasn't teased a lot in middle school. I grew up in Oklahoma. But I mean, I was like, loved Wonder Woman. Like, I was a very, like, just super gay kid. And, but I remember like having some people like were making fun of me, but then several months later, very long, complicated story, but a person moved into town. We became friends. She was friends with those people that had made fun of me before. So it was literally like a freaking 90s movie where suddenly now I'm friends with some of the people that were mean kids to me. And I recognized I could not hang out with them and be friends because I tried once, like, being mean to someone, and
It's just not
it
you.
like almost made me throw up. Like,
Yeah.
I could not handle the way I made that. And I ended up
Yeah.
apologizing to them, and it was a whole dramatic thing. But it was just this thing of like, I can't stomach seeing somebody's face drop like that.
Yeah.
And it's really hard for me.
Yeah. Oh, wow. So empathy, that's a really good one. I feel like mine is like listening to people and
Oh.
like kind of making people feel heard and like understood. I feel like that's kind of similar to empathy though, because it's
I think
like
they're I think that's why people
understanding.
can talk to me
Yeah.
and meet me in 2 minutes. We're talking about their divorce.
Same. No,
Same. No,
literally
you're
same.
same.
I've been at like a party and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, are you okay?
Which
Like,
is
what
great.
happened?
Sometimes you really quickly bond with people, and
Yeah.
so sometimes you have to be careful of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think they're both of those things are very,
Yeah.
very related. Very related.
Do you have any like no moments, explicit no moments that happened that you're now really grateful because they kind of steered you towards something much better or they taught you something really valuable?
I went out for so many hosting things. And I can't tell you, I would go to these different shows to host a television show or this or that. And this is not even with rep, just kind of getting myself in the door because I auditioned well. I'm not saying I'm the best person in the room, but I maybe it goes with empathy, but something that I've been it's just been an innate quality for me is, um, like you said, making people comfortable, but also, um, I can be myself. It's very easy for me to be myself. If you meet me in person, people say to me on the podcast, they're like, "Oh, you're just like you are in the podcast."
Yeah.
I'm like, "I'm not acting.
Yeah, this is me.
This is me." If I'm on stage, when I was on stage in front of thousands of people, I'm the exact same way I am.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that for me, I like that. I know I definitely have an authenticity. I know who I am.
Yeah.
And so but that was hard being a gay actor in the early 2000s, a host, because I would go out for these things time and time and time again. And I would get so close, and the producer would say, "You're so talented. You're so great. We love you." But they would either pick the gorgeous guy who looked like Ricky Martin or the guy who was like super effeminate and like, "Yes, queen," and or was bitchy gay.
Yeah.
I'm not those things.
Yeah.
I remember once I was on it's like a reality show for Leanne Rimes and her husband at the time, and they wanted me to like play the bitchy gay assistant. And I was like, in my head, I was like, I don't think I can do this. But it was like a pilot, for like a big star. And I did it, and because I'd done a pilot already with a company. It was a Tom Arnold, and I played like a assistant for that. Well, I wasn't bitchy, but just his assistant for that. And they liked me, and that show didn't get picked up. And so, because 90 Day Fiance is more real, but a lot of reality shows, are written and fake.
Yeah.
But I did that, and it was terrible. Like, their faces, like, I think they met me, and I was like gregarious, and I made them laugh, and they're like, "Oh, she's gonna kill it. He's gonna be so." And they're watching. They were kind of like, "Huh," like a dog looking at something, scratching their heads. And I told them after, I said, "I told y'all, I'm just not good at being bitchy.
Yeah.
It's just not who I am."
Yeah.
So because of all of that kind of no from maybe the universe, or I really feel like from casting people who didn't find the box to fit me in.
Yeah.
That's where I started Dear Mattie. That's where I went, fuck it, I'm just going to do my own podcast.
I like that answer.
I just had too many things where I I was always the runner-up.
Mm-hmm. And it really highlights how important like representation matters so much. And
It matters so much. And also as an artist, I think it's so important to own your shit.
I kind of want to talk about your opera studies.
Sure. I got into opera because my cousin Lori, I called her Lolo, she did pageants and she sang, and she babysat me all the time. And when she was a senior in high school, she put me in the talent show when I was in 4th grade.
Oh, wow.
And I won it. And my town was a small little town in Oklahoma. And so, I mean, even to this day, I went back home for a funeral last weekend, and someone says, "Oh, there's old Rocky Top," because I sang Rocky Top in the talent show, and I won.
Nice.
And so it kind of set this path for me. I was the kid who could sing, and that's just all I did growing up. And I sang at the time, you know, I sang really well compared to other people. So it was just, I was revered for that. And then, so when I went to high school, it was kind of a no-brainer that there was a school, the University of North Texas, used to be Mean Green, or still is Mean Green, but it's north of Dallas, but it's like an hour and 20 minutes from my hometown. Okay. So it was perfect. It was like far enough, not too far away. It was the largest at the time music school in the country, one of the best. I mean, Nora Jones went to school with me.
Oh my God.
Yeah, Roy Orbison, like Harry Connick Jr. went there.
Wow.
What's her name? She was in my music theory class. She sat behind me and would always play piano. Nora Jones. It was just, I said that already. Yeah, sorry. I'm like breaking. I was had that memory. I remember she would like sit behind me in music theory, and she would move her foot and kind of kick my chair. And I remember being like,
Nora.
And then she dropped out of school, and we're like, she's a loser. She's not going to make it. And then a year later, she won a Grammy. Yeah. So we shut up. But no, it was the guy, I can't remember his name, the guy like who, just many music. So it was a very competitive music school. And suddenly I was a minuscule fish in a ginormous pond.
Yeah. What made you realize opera was not the path, or singing was not the path you wanted to follow?
I think it takes a lot to recognize that just because you're good at something doesn't mean you're meant to do it.
Hey everybody, real quick, we have some awesome merch and you are going to want to check it out. I've linked it in the show notes. And listen, I pretty much exclusively wear Thank You for Saying No merch because it's literally that fashionable and that comfortable. We have t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, canvas bags. The t-shirts say "Thank you for saying no" across the chest. The hoodies say "Rejection is redirection," like this hoodie right here. And there's more to come, so it's very cute. Okay, go check it out.
But what I recognize is that I enjoy singing, but it feels much more of a cathartic kind of outlet for me. The catharsis of it and the letting go. And I've used a lot of music to express my joy and grief and things like that. But I really always wanted to be an actor. And at the time, I didn't think I could do it because there was no Will and Grace. That started for me in college. But at the time, it was played by Sean Hayes wasn't out, and Eric McCormick is straight. So it's paid. So there's this difference of, as an actor, I thought, well, there's not a lot of gay characters on TV. It sounds like a purse falls out of my mouth when I talk. I get it. Like, I can't, some guys can quote, whatever that is now, that's changing, thankfully. But back in the day, that could be stealth and like act straight, whatever that is. I could not do that. And so it was pretty obvious that I was different. And so I kind of told myself, well, for instance, I went to an arts camp in Oklahoma that you auditioned to. It was a fine arts camp, and they did choir and acting and all this. But I never auditioned for acting because I never thought I would get in. I just always did the chorus because I wanted to go to the camp so badly. And then whenever I was an okay singer, I got with a not great teacher. He was pretty homophobic. I did come out in college. He wasn't super comfortable with me, and not just a great voice teacher for me. Developed some vocal problems. So suddenly, like, my voice isn't working, and that my identity was like, but I'm the good singer. Where Harry Potter's the boy who lived, I was the boy who could sing. And so suddenly I can't sing anymore. I'm having vocal problems. I can't have a career of this. And it's kind of, what am I going to do? And so much, in fact, to graduate, you had to have a role, an opera role to graduate. They wouldn't give me a role. And so I went over to the theater department. They were doing a musical. And I just said, hey, can I audition for this and have this be my role if I get it? And I did. It was a musical funny thing happened on the way to the Forum, and I basically got like the second lead. So it was kind of this reward of my acting actually is what kind of got me some recognition. But by then I almost was ready to graduate. I had like a semester left. So I thought, screw it, I'm just going to finish this degree. But it was this. So then I finished college and I went, what do I do? I don't want to pursue singing. Maybe I'll pursue music. Like I went to grad school at Oklahoma City University, which is an amazing musical theater school. I studied actually with Kristen Chenoweth's teacher there. That's where she went to school. But I quit after 2 weeks because I just thought, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do a master's in a performance degree.
So then did you, so when you were doing the theater, did that connect with you more?
For sure. It can not only, it was comedy. I mean, funny thing happened on the way to the Forum is a farce. So just the slapstick comedy of it, just, it made me, and we were dressing like it's very farce. And like at one point I played this character called Hysterium, who is hysterical. And it's kind of the sidekick of the main guy, Pseudolus, but Hysterium is dressing up, trying to convince someone else that he's this woman and wearing cantaloupes in his bra. Like, it's just so fun. It's so Monty Python, Mel Brooks. But it reminded me of like besides Wonder Woman, probably one of my earlier comedic influences was Carol Burnett. So it just felt like something you would see on the Carol Burnett show. So it was that, and that I made people laugh so much. And then also, I mean, no tea, no shade, but theater people are just cooler than opera people. Because opera people were a little bit more, I mean, there is no queen like an opera queen. Like, we just are more fastidious. Whereas theater people are just, I feel like, more embracing of differences. And so, that definitely resonated. But then I kind of didn't know. I had this pool of, because probably the three things that influenced me a lot as a kid were Wonder Woman, Carol Burnett, and Oprah Winfrey. So talk shows, these kind of conversation, I was, practicing that as a kid in middle school too. That was interesting to me. So like imagining what it would be like if. So it was kind of after I graduated undergrad, it was this pool of, what am I going to do? Am I going to do the acting thing, the musical theater thing? Am I going to be more hosting thing? And that's ultimately what led to kind of a turning point. Another turning point for me is I'm a very big Shania Twain fan. And
I saw Shania Twain.
Yeah.
It was at Stagecoach.
Oh, yes.
Many years ago.
So I've seen her like 10 times. Like, I'm a fan. And I saw Shania Twain in 1998 in Oklahoma City. My dad took me to see her. And I had a sign. He surprised me with 4th row tickets. And I had a sign that said, and I put a heart, and then it's you. But I cut a hole in the heart, and I would stick the sign around my head. So it's like my face saying, I love you. And so she saw me having fun. And so during the concert, she said, hey, do you want to come up and show everybody your sign? And I'm going, oh my gosh. My dad's kind of frozen. And my stepmother at the time is going, Matt, get up there. She's pushing me. And I go up there, and I get up there, and Shania's like, you seem like you're a fan. I'm like, the biggest. And she's like, well, do you know my songs? I said, everyone. And she's like, do you want to sing one together? And I said, sure.
Oh my God.
And so she didn't know I was a singer at all.
I'm sure you blew her away.
So I remember like, Shania Twain always says things like cool or gotcha or ah. And so in her songs. So the song started, she's supposed to do something like, yeah. Well, she looked over me and to do, kind of like, I'm going to be funny. But she didn't realize, bitch came right back at her, and I was like, yeah. And I hear her pop back, and she turned around and said, holy shit. Like, and
oh my God.
So we ended up, so she sang the first verse, and then she put the microphone on me at the second verse. I didn't have a monitor in, so I couldn't really hear it.
Yeah.
So I started singing, and suddenly I just heard this entire stadium erupt into a roar cheer, and everyone stands on their feet, and I'm just blinded by lights.
Yeah.
It was before cell phones or anything like that. So we had pictures, and that's it. But it was truly one of the greatest nights of my life. But and I'll never forget it. There's a picture of me singing, and you see her face is just like totally dropped and like eyes wide. And so even then, like it was great after, and she's like, you're going to have a great music career. And I said, thank you. But that was a turning point for me of recognizing, kind of what we were talking about earlier, like part of my superpower is yes, the empathy, but that's a broader in the empathy, I think is I'm a gatherer of people
Mm-hmm.
and a builder of community,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm good at that. And that's something I do naturally. And so it was this thing of, when you're performing, you're an actor, you imagine all the things of if you win an Oscar or
Mm-hmm.
this or that. But you also imagine, like, I imagined working or singing in
Mm-hmm.
front of a stadium, in front of audience. And so it was very validating that, because even my dad was like, Matthew, I can't, you were dancing around. You looked like you knew the moves. It was just, you were so professional. And I was like, I know I can do this.
Yeah.
So it was this confidence booster, which I still work on, that really though, and they kind of pulled me towards to do that. So this is a long story. I'm sorry,
No,
but
I'm so into it.
so that happened. And then about 2 years later, I was teaching summer camps in Massachusetts, and I submitted for like Shania's One Fan for a television show. Well, it turns out I won it. And so Country
Oh
Music
my God.
Television at the time flew me to Shania's hometown in Canada. I didn't meet her again. I just went to like her school, the McDonald's she worked at, like a bar she sang at. I went to her old childhood home.
Oh my God.
But it was me. It was just a producer, a cameraman, a sound guy. That's it.
Wow.
And the three of us were just walking around getting this footage. But it was me talking to the camera like it was my friend.
Okay.
So suddenly now through Shania Twain, I'd done the singing thing, and now through Shania Twain, I'm getting to quote be Oprah, the other influence. Like so, and this all like just really happened within like a 2.5 year, like bam, bam, bam. And so, or 4 years, but I was even the producer said, you're such a natural at this. Like, I don't even have to tell you what to say.
Yeah.
Cause I just went, oh, I'm going to pretend the camera is my best friend, Sean. I didn't even know that. And then later when I took hosting classes, they would say, pretend the camera's your friend. So I just naturally did it. Cause I kind of, Malcolm Gladwell talks about 10,000 hours and all that. And is that Blink or, I don't remember the one. But, I had done those 10,000 hours of interviewing and talking to the camera when I would record Oprah, sit on the hearth of our fireplace, and I would pause it. Like before Oprah would ask a question, I'd pause and ask my question. And so I just, anyway, so after that though, that's where I went, I want to move to LA. I don't want to do, in LA, maybe I could do theater, but I really want to act on television. I want to do hosting stuff. And it kind of propelled me into that. And that was 20 years ago.
You said so many great things. I'm going to maybe backtrack a little before I move on.
You can always interrupt me.
No, I'm so invested in your story. I was like in the audience watching you sing in my mind. I was like so excited for you.
Yeah, I was going to show you the pictures if I find them.
But how you talk about theater kind of being more accepting, which is really interesting because for me, like in the legal field, because I'm an attorney. Did you know that?
Yeah, I did know that. Yeah.
So I'm an attorney.
Because I worked at the law office for 18 years.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, I would like to talk about that. But the legal profession is like very prestigious. Like you have to be a certain type of way. And so as I'm kind of navigating being an attorney and being in the start of my career and all that kind of stuff, really staying true and authentic, like not being necessarily unprofessional, but I'm trying to make sure I create space where I can show up just as I am and still get the work done, which is not always easy to do because sometimes I'd rather just like pull my hair back, slick it back, and not have the curls or like all these other things that are like part of me and my identity. You know?
Just want to sit and write a brief in peace. And however you are. And
not like show up. Or sometimes like I have black glasses that are square. I'm like, should I wear my black glasses? And my mom's always like, no, keep your pink ones. Like that's you. You know, because I'm trying to like blend in instead of be me and like stand out. So I relate to you saying like how theater can be more accepting. And it's always like, I'm really fighting myself the most and trying to be my most authentic, but I think it's important to like show up as you are so you can set the example for other people to show up as like their quirky selves too.
Exactly.
So when did you start, like when did becoming a therapist happen?
So that therapist came from, have you ever done the book or read the book, the workbook, The Artist's Way? It's a great book. It's by Julie Cameron. I recommend it for anyone who's just trying to figure out next step or just inner creativity. It's written through her model of, she was a writer or is a writer. And also she is sober. So a lot of it feels very much it feels similar to AA kind of steps. Not like a god or anything like that, but so it's accessible to anyone. But You do things like morning pages. You kind of write out your morning, but it's 12 weeks. It's a 12-week program. And one of the things that she talks about in her book, fully transparent.
Mhm.
I've never made it to all 12 weeks. I think I've gotten to week like 7.
Okay.
But even doing 7 weeks or 6,
Mhm.
that has still been life changing. Just
Yeah.
like it's for my create. Actually, maybe I should do it again as I'm talking to you. But so she talks about this thing called shadow careers.
Mhm.
And so I was in a space of it was 2007, I believe. And I had gone on maybe just, I told you I got some confidence from that shit, but I really still had pretty low self confidence,
Mhm.
not self esteem, but confidence of putting myself out there.
Yeah.
Like it was weird. I had this balance of I knew in my head I was like, I think I'm great. I think I have something cool to offer, but then I didn't think anybody would want to see it, or I didn't see, well, kind of what you talked about. I didn't see myself anywhere
Mhm.
because when gay people started getting cast in things, well, you had to be either for all of them, you almost all of them had to be like slim, in shape, pretty. Like you could either be the pretty guy that we don't know you're gay, and because literally in the in the 90s and early 2000s, that would be plot lines of movies is, oh wait, or you had to be like a drag queen, like what super
Mm.
flamboyant, and that's all great. I'm kind of in the middle of that.
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm harder to box in, or at least I was at the time. So
Yeah.
I just didn't see myself even in any of the independent like gay movies. I'm like, like
Mhm.
no, like, and so I just didn't see myself. I so I thought maybe I was doing the hardest way, and I thought, well, maybe I need to do something different. Maybe I need to give up this acting thing. But I love living in California. I don't want to leave here.
Mhm.
So I started volunteering for the Trevor Project, which is a suicide helpline for LGBTQ youth.
Oh wow.
And at the time, it was just I volunteered as a helpline counselor. So they trained us.
Mhm.
People are calling in. Not all of them are feeling suicidal, but there's a lot. But a lot of them are feeling just alone or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're just counseling through them. And through that, I went, I really like this. So I kind of decided, well, and if I can talk to somebody who's really suicidal and literally about to take action in that, which I did,
Mhm.
I feel like I could talk to anyone.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what led me down the therapy path. And so I thought that's what, but it really was, I think what Julie Cameron talks about in her book, The Artist Way, I think it was a shadow career. I think it wasn't truly what I wanted to do,
Mhm.
but it made my parents happy.
Mhm.
My dad was a plumber. My mother worked for the IRS, was an accountant, very much that brain set, or mindset. And it just made them shut up. They were like, great, Matthew's doing a job we can be proud of,
Mm.
what we know what the job is.
Yeah.
And it, and she talks about shadow careers necessarily aren't the career that fills you up completely, but
Mhm.
it fills you up enough. And for some people, a shadow career their whole life is great. It enables them to live the life they want to live.
Yeah.
And so for me though, that's kind of what therapy was. I did it. And then as I was kind of finished still getting my hours, because I'm not licensed, you have to get your hours and then get licensed, kind of like an attorney. Like you get a law
Yeah.
degree, but for each state, you have to get a license for
Right.
that state. And so I'm not licensed in the state of California. And I was starting to work towards that and get my hours and do all that. And then a buddy just said, you've got a great face for commercials. You should meet with my friend that has people find commercial agents for
Mhm.
them. And I went, oh, I kind of naively thought, oh, commercials, it's just easy. You just show up. You don't have to work hard at it. Sure, whatever. It's easy money. Little did I know that's a lot of time and investment to yourself to get out there.
Yeah.
But I did it though, and I really liked it. And I
Mhm.
liked doing commercial auditions. And then I just started booking national commercial after national commercial after, like, I just had
Yeah.
a really good run for about 4 years where I was
Mhm.
just, and that totally took me out of doing therapy and really brought me back into what podcasting, artistic endeavors, and that really just because the commercials was doing were, like I did a hotels.com commercial in my underwear, like and working with like the guy who directed that ended up directing Hidden Figures,
Mhm.
so I anyway, I just kind of that brought me back to it really brought me back to being an actor,
Yeah.
which is what I always wanted to do, but I
Yeah.
took a way to meander to do it.
I actually watched the commercials you're talking about because I think they're on your IBM or IMBD.
IBM.
Wait.
IMDb. Yes.
IMDb.
Yes. I don't even know if there is IBM anymore.
I don't know what that is. But no, they were really good. And when you said that, I did one in my underwear. I was like, oh, I know which one he's talking about.
Oh yeah. That was my most popular. Of course, my most popular one. It's really it's something when you go to see a movie and then they show your commercial and you're 20 feet high in your underwear. That's something.
It's funny. So then how did you get to Reality Gaze, the podcast? And then also, because Dear Mattie was your segue to Reality Gaze, right? So maybe we should start with Dear Mattie. How did Dear Mattie enter the picture?
Dear Mattie was a culmination. I had been doing the artist way, actually. I think the first time I'd done it. And it made me recognize that I want to do something just for artistic output, for my own artistic output that has no filters of yes. No,
Wait, what does that mean?
So I have a buddy who we do producing stuff and we pitch shows together to networks and stuff like that. And to get a show, made, you have to have 30 yeses from all different levels of people.
Oh, okay.
But one no takes you out.
Right.
So it really is a miracle for a show to be made, truly. And I thought, I just want to do something where no one fucking tells me yes or no.
Okay.
I just do what I want to do.
Yeah.
And it was really the combination of, I wanted to have humor, heart, and helpfulness. Those were kind of the three words I used as my intention guides, and which were all the three things that I wanted. The humor of the Carol Burnett, I'm the comedy guy. The heart of what I thought about like Oprah and having these heartfelt conversations. And then the helpfulness of, wanting to do the therapy thing and that. And so it started off as an advice show and I loved it. It was great. I did it for 2 years and I did it pretty religiously, once a week, having someone on, and it didn't blow up by any means. I mean, it was, I didn't have that many downloads, but that all didn't matter because I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, my buddy Jake, who I do Reality Gaze with, we know each other back from North Texas. He's a musician. He's a fantastic pianist, composer, voice teacher, singer. He's one of those kids that's playing crazy Rachmaninoff when he was 8 years old, on the piano.
Wow.
So we kind of became friends in college and then met more afterwards and hung out. And then I lived with this girl and we were living in LA. We wanted to move to a house. He was tired of living in Dallas and he wanted to move. So he came and lived with us and we were roommates for like 7 or 8 years.
And you were still doing Dear Mattie when he was your roommate?
No. So we were roommate. And then I moved out. I was like, I'm ready. It was like when I was around 31, 32. I was like, I'm grown. I'm ready to live by myself.
Yeah.
I moved out. I started doing Dear Mattie.
Okay.
And then, so I did Dear Mattie for 3 or 4 years. And then I think I started that in 2013. And then 2013, 14. And then, yes, in 2014, I started that. And I, because I had a business partnership before that, we had a falling out, we just had different directions. He wanted to make really dramatic films. I did not. And so I started Dear Mattie, did that. And then at the same time, Jake and I would do this is a whole other long story, but very long story short, we started a show called Cabaret. Basically, Jake and I lived with this one girl. We called her Sissy. And then we lived with our other friend moved in. There was a 1-bedroom apartment above our garage. Okay. Kind of like Rhoda to, what's the old sitcom? She throws her hat up. Who can... Mary Tyler Moore.
Oh, okay.
It's like Mary Tyler Moore had a Rhoda that lived in the garage apartment. And so, but for her birthday, she said, hey, can you, because Jake and I would sing and we would always like sing in our falsettos, which means like singing like women and being silly. She said, you queens are always like drinking and like just singing stupidly. Can you actually just prepare like 3 songs for me? I would love that for my birthday. We're all broke. If you could do that, I would love that. Will you tell that to 2 gay men, and then 6 months later, you get a 45-minute cabaret show in their living room where they invited 40 people.
I love it.
And so we called it Cabaret, and it was just a reverent kind of just fun thing. And we had a great time. And then we did it again the next year in our living room of this house. And we had 80 people there.
Oh my God.
With like a shirtless bartender out on our porch. And then the third year we did it, it was too big. We had to have it in a theater.
Really?
So we've done it now, I think 7 or 8 iterations of the show throughout
Is it still happening?
We haven't done it in a while because podcast blew up and we've just been focusing on podcasting. Yeah. But we did that show and people really respond to it. And Jake and I've been friends for 20 years. And like, he's salty, I'm sweet, I'm sugar, he's spice. Like we just
you compliment the yin and yang.
Yeah, like he's a bitch, I'm a codependent nag. Like we're just like we compliment each other and we know each other so well. And we both really resonated with Carol Burnett and that type of comedy and things like that. And Mama's Family, shows like that we loved. And so we were thought, how do we turn this cabaret show into a podcast? How do we take the energy of that? Because doing live shows in our podcast was always the end game for us.
Okay.
Which is wonderful to do now. And
how far into your podcast did you start doing live shows?
We had to get the audience first. But as soon as we kind of blew up, we immediately knew that we wanted to do live shows. And so, but that said, like we podcasted for 4.5 years before we made $1. And it was literally, and this is what I tell people when they want to do podcasting, especially if they're doing it with someone else. I'm like, it doesn't matter. Yeah, their talent and all that's great, but you have to find somebody that's just going to show up for you and put in as much work as you every week. Because every Wednesday night after we did all our stuff, I come over to my job. Even when we weren't roommates, I'd show up, I'd go to his house and we podcast. Yeah. And we did fiction shows. We did a lot of different shows. And then actually one of my listeners from the Dear Mattie show, we became friends. I even had her on the Dear Mattie show. Her name's Jackie. She said we were kind of thinking of shows and she moderated at a time, or still does, our Facebook group. And she said, have you guys ever thought about that show, 90 Day Fiancé? I love that. It's a hot mess. Yeah. And so we had done a lot of fiction show. We'd done some reality TV, but more fringe things. And we said,
French reality TV?
Fringe, like lesser known reality TV. Okay. Like there was a show called like Finding Prince Charming. It was like all gay people. It was terrible. But we would do shows, but we hadn't really done a show. We didn't know that 90 Day Fiancé was the most watched show by women in cable, period, full stop. More than Housewives. It's the highest ratings like every week. Yeah. And so we said, why not? Let's try this show. And we started watching it. And I think the first month we went from having 2,000 downloads to 70,000 downloads in a month.
So do you feel like reality gaze aligns with what your superpower has become?
It feels within the purpose. It also feels, I guess, the empathy of connection, that we have people now that will move to a new town. They'll post in our Facebook group or whatever, or they'll go to a live show. And then the next time we see them at the live show again in that town, these two women now are best friends. And that's how they connected, was through our show. Yeah. And so that makes me feel great that anything I can do, because I think I grew up, like you were saying earlier, I mean, such a circle back, but I grew up not feeling seen and not feeling like somebody got me. We just really do. It's like that validation piece. We just want someone to get us. Yeah. Like you get me, I get you, got it. And so I think that's nice that we can offer that to people.
Yeah. I think, and I just want to point out for the listeners how, like when you identified, like you realized your superpower from a young age was like empathy. I'm sure you didn't imagine like hosting a podcast called Reality Gaze where you connected people and helped them feel like seen and heard.
No, I never, I think when I did the therapy thing, again, the shadow career, sometimes shadow careers that she talks about have a little bit of cachet. They sound important and they feel meaningful. It felt really meaningful to say, to throw on my cardigan and say, well, I'm a therapist. And people go, oh, wow, what you're saving lives, whatever. And you are there. It's a wonderfully, I'm a big proponent of therapy. It was, another thing that kind of came up for me later in life was following fun. And this has both of those pieces. It feels fun, but I thought, well, I'm going to do Dear Mattie, or I'm going to be a therapist, and that's how I'm going to help people. But I didn't realize that by Jake and I just having fun, telling dick jokes, like with a little bit of, again, armchair psychology.
Yeah.
And that actually, that the power of giving someone, especially during COVID, we hear all the time, and I never get sick of hearing when people say, you got me through COVID, because people were going crazy. And that was, I think, the reason why that was such a great time for podcasts, because it's an intimate medium that you feel like their friend. But I did not think that doing this podcast that was really more comedy was what would give people peace.
Yeah.
And so it's made me definitely support and honor comedy, and that I don't always, the perfectionist in me, before I do something, says, well, I have to work it out like this. I have to do this. It has to be perfect. I've got to have all these. No, there's something also for just having fun.
Yeah. And being authentic and
giving people a break in their day, the power in that.
Yeah. So I like, because, the podcast, our slogan is finding meaning in life's unexpected turns. And your story had lots of twists and unexpected turns and just all that kind of stuff. So I want to do some reflecting on your life here. So looking back at your different twists and turns, how, and for the listeners at home who may be navigating twists and turns too, how did you know it was time to pivot?
I think that's the hardest question to answer. I just was talking to a friend last night who doesn't know if she wants to be in a relationship still or not. Yeah. And she's working with that. And I just, over the phone, I said, but are you done? She said, what do you mean? I said, are you done? Are you done with this? Because I do feel like there's this moment where you're done and you feel it in your gut. And suddenly, you have someone said this, and I'm going to quote it, but I can't remember who said it, but the pain of not doing anything is greater than the current pain you're experiencing. And I think that's where the pivot comes in. Is it's too painful not to do anything. And my friend was like, no, I'm not done. I was like, okay. Then when you're not done right now, and you can still try and do this. But so I think for me, that was pivoting. Like, I lost my identity as a singer. I didn't know what I was going to do. The pain and that, again, the pain of not doing something became greater, and that allowed me to pivot. And I think that it's and the pain of losing that business partnership. He was my friend too, and I wanted to be friends. He didn't end on great terms from his end. So I had this business partnership that fell apart. And then I thought, well, what am I going to do? And I thought, well, I'm just going to do a freaking talk show in my house, because that's what I want to do. And that's where I started Dear Mattie.
Yeah.
And not even knowing that podcasting, I remember thinking one day, my dream was, man, it would be really cool if I could do, from podcasting, if I could pay just my rent from podcasting, that would be awesome. And now that it's exceeded that beyond, and I never thought it would. In some ways, I imagine the live show stuff. I imagine just connecting with people. Like when people say, did you ever imagine that?
Yeah.
I went, yeah, I do. And that feels actually really confidence boot, that I had an intention, I had a dream, and I saw it.
And it happened.
And the dream is fully realized exactly the way I imagined it. But I didn't imagine other things we're working on, and being signed by William Moore, like craziness that I never imagined from podcasting. I dreamt about as an actor. That brought me to this. And then the community that it's built, and just, that's been, I mean, I went to Italy, and they're like, someone reckoned, and we're not even that big of a podcast in comparison. Like, we're not Zach Shepard. We're not Smartless. We're not all these people.
Yeah.
But still, it's just the power of podcasting in a community.
Yeah. No, that's a really good answer, actually. So I was talking to my mom about this question, and I was like, I wonder, because I was trying to reflect on it for myself too. Like, when have I pivoted? When did I know?
Yeah, when did you know?
And it's like, the gut feeling is there, but sometimes we need more than just oh, I just felt it, and then you describing that if it would hurt more not to do something, that is a really excellent way to describe it.
I think the most pain we give ourselves is when we fail ourselves. And that idea of, it goes along with it. Your gut is telling you, I'm done with this. Yeah. I'm not ready. I'm done doing this. But your head is saying, but I need to pay bills, but I need to do this. And sometimes head can have reason, and that can be great. But it's when you start failing yourself when you go, "Oh, I'm starting to feel guilty, or I feel shamed, or I feel dumb that I knew better and I'm not, and I keep failing at this, but my gut is telling me something different." That's
Yeah.
painful.
Mm-hmm. And then just to highlight for the listeners how like the no's from casting or life or not your voice, like kind of physical no, how they all shaped you and you bring that experience with you to your show. And I think that's
Mm,
part of how you're
thank
able
you.
to show up so authentically.
Thank you. I think maybe it's a bit of age, but knowing that I don't know if the universe really ever says no. People,
Right?
institutions say no,
Mm-hmm.
but the universe is always saying, "Let me guide you." Like
Yeah.
Oprah talks about how, like, when we're fighting the flow, it just feel like everything's a battle. And
Mm.
when you know yourself and you know how you're seen in the world, and you can be okay with those things, because people know themselves, but sometimes they're not seen that way, and they really battle about that because they're
Mm-hmm.
like, I want to be seen as a Kim Kardashian. And I'm like, bitch, you're a redhead. Like, you whatever. Like, no one sees you that way. Like, but they fight with that. But
Yeah.
once we let go of that, I'm not saying things come easy. It's still, I've worked very hard and
Right.
many hours of doing stuff just for free. Again, that 10,000 hours. But it was always fun. It was
Mm-hmm.
always following that fun and always energetic
Mm-hmm.
for me to do. So it felt like I wasn't fighting against the river. I felt like I was flowing with the river.
Yeah. I really like that answer.
Yeah.
Wow. So, and you mentioned Wonder Woman.
Hmm.
What do you like about Wonder Woman? I love superheroes, so I'm like,
Okay. I know it's been nice that we kind of finally had Wonder Woman movies and stuff like that. Of course, it's all
right.
changing again, but different podcast. I'm not going to go down the nerd hole. Um, I love that Wonder Woman. I think as a child, um, I mean, it all makes sense, but I mean, it makes sense to me now.
Mm-hmm.
But when Wonder Woman lived in this world where she was celebrated, this world of this island of women, she was celebrated,
Mm-hmm.
she was looked up to, and then she had to go to man's world, and suddenly she had to hide who she is. She had to have
Mm-hmm.
a secret identity. She couldn't tell anybody she was powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt the same way. I felt like I
Mm.
grew up kind of in this love bubble of my family, and my parents were very supportive, have been my whole life. And I don't think they were just, I was born in 79, so I'm 44. So growing up in the 80s, it's not like you had a lot of parents unless you lived in San Francisco. They were like, we love that you're gay. So, and I never came out. We just knew Matthew was different,
No.
but we didn't know what he was
Yeah.
sensitive or whatever. But I, but I think that's what I related to about Wonder Woman is that, because Wonder Woman, the thing that she has, her most powerful weapon is the truth. She carries
Mm.
a lasso of truth and it
Mm.
compels people to be honest. And so when I look at those, just deeply resonated me. I think, desperate to be my true self
Mm-hmm.
and couldn't really express that. And so, yeah, I felt like I had to go my home. My parents were like, oh, Matthew's going to play Wonder Woman. He's going to sing Whitney Houston or Reba McEntire. Like, it's fine.
Yeah.
That's him. And my
Mm-hmm.
family, even my extended family was like, that's just Matthew. But when I went out into the world, that's where I had to act like a quote boy.
Mm.
And so it's like I had to go out into man's world and put the glasses on, put my hair up, but I
Yeah.
just wanted to spin around and be myself.
Mm-hmm. I love that analogy. Shout out to Wonder Woman.
She paved the path for a lot of people. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty uh I'll never forget. Um I've met Linda Carter. She was singing a thing. I met her a long time ago. And then I went to a SAG screening of Wonder Woman when the first movie came out. The
Mm-hmm.
first one so it was such a hit. And of course I was wearing like my tiara, my old little rope I used to use as a boy. Like
Yeah.
the whole thing.
I love it.
And I was sitting on the second row and we go to leave and people were trying to like, Gal Gadot spoke after the film.
Mm-hmm.
And so people were trying to talk to her and I was just like, I'm not trying to do that. And so I kind of stood back and I was back out of the way and I was sitting there and I wasn't really paying attention. I was just kind of like taking in, it was great. Like I was just happy at one point Gal Gadot said, we've even got Wonder Man here. And she pointed and I was like, what's up? And I'm kind of just disassociating probably
Yeah.
coming out of my body. And I turn around and look, and Gal Gadot is right in front of me. And I just look at her and I say, thank you. And she
Aw.
gives me the biggest hug. And she said, you're so welcome.
This has been a really great conversation.
I love it. I mean, I love you, and I love what you're about, and I love the show, and it felt like 10 minutes. So.
It really did.
It did. I know.
So do you want to tell the listeners where they can find you, what you've got going on?
Realitygaze.com is our website, or just wherever you listen to any podcast, Reality Gaze. Again, we cover 90 Day Fiancé is our main show, but we also cover like Love is Blind. It's coming out February 14th. We do Love After Lockup, Smothered. Sorry, my throat got a little tickled. Smothered, these kind of shows, all shows about relationships, whether love or familiar relationships we cover. You can just, that's wherever you find podcasts. That's where we are.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me, Kenya.
Okay. On the podcast, we want to connect with the audience and create a community that inspires and grows together. We have a way to do that. Submit your own thank you for saying no moment or story and how it's impacted your life in a great way, and then we'll read it on the podcast. There's a form linked in the description where you can submit. You can respond anonymously, of course, but if you leave your name and your social media, we'll give you a little shout out when we read your submission. And all submissions will be part of a drawing to win some exclusive Thank You for Saying No merch. Follow and subscribe to the Thank You for Saying No podcast, and you'll get every episode as soon as it's released.